who are in Pakistan, and good morning for the people who are joining from US or any other country. So let me share my screen and then we can start about this. So let's with a brief introduction for myself. I am Zain Abbas and I work at Cloud Junction as the director product engineering. I have around 12 years of Salesforce technical experience. And what I am doing right now with Cloud Junction is my role is to design different apps. What we have done right now, we are building some SaaS and iPaaS products by using Salesforce platforms. Uh, mm, my achievements are, you can say, what I count are one of my app are now is now on App Exchange, and the other one has cleared the security review. It will be soon published on App Exchange as well. That's a brief introduction of myself, and let's quickly jump into the today's topic. Thank you, Rimsha and Hassan Mustafa, for arranging this training for all the community members. So here we're gonna talk about introduction to Apex advanced concepts, governor limits. We are not going to you can say talk about all governor limits. We are just talking and discuss the major governor limits which we face very frequently, how we can use exception handling, and what are the collections. Actually, I don't say it's advanced Apex concept, but let's see, because everything works with action in Apex. If you have command on these things, then you can write pretty optimized code. Then we'll put some light on circle and advanced circle, but we'll just go through this topic. We'll not spend more time on it because our next session will be in more detail with circle. Then we are going to talk about asynchronous apex, and I would say this is uh, majorly the topic for today. And then we touch test classes, and we'll see some difference between synchronous and asynchronous processing. Let me know if you feel any lag, so I will switch off my video because I think I will face some slow internet speed. So let's begin with introduction to advanced
Sure.
Apex concepts. Thank you. So what is advanced Apex concept? Actually, when we talk about Apex, we talk about how do you write code in Apex, how do you write code in Salesforce. Apex is programming language we use for the backend of Salesforce to connect with the database, not to build the interfaces or the front end. We use it to connect Salesforce or the write the backend of the Salesforce in Apex. Advanced Apex concepts are crucial for Salesforce developers to build scalable, efficient, and maintainable applications like design pattern, asynchronous processing, integration, testing, security. These are just you can say a bookish definition I've got and I've added it. So we'll go in later what we actually mean by Apex advanced concept. Let's start with governor limit. We talk about Apex, or you can say keep the governor limit in our mind, because we cannot uh, write code very freely because we work in a multi-tenant architecture where a shared resource will be on, you can say, operating side or compiling side, and the resources are being shared between different servers of Salesforce or different orgs of Salesforce. So we have to be very much, you can say, careful by writing code. And when I say careful, it means I have to be careful about the under limits. And what are those limits? Like, for example, we can write maximum of 100 socket queries per time. When you start, actually, what I say, like when we start writing code, like as a beginner, we can see like 100 socket queries are, the count is very less. But when we getting, you can say, experience in our career, we see that this limit is really hard to hit. We have to be, we have to do a really difficult thing or a really bad practice in any language to hit these limits actually. In any language, like if you work in Node or anything, I'm 100% sure, because I have experienced that, working with Node developers as well. Indexing particularly, or writing SOQL, let's say writing query or DMS inside loop is not encouraged there as well, because it puts unnecessary, you can say, load on the server to optimize, or sorry, to run that code particularly. So these are the limits which we frequently face in our daily life when we work Apex. 100 number of inquiries per transaction. You can write maximum DML statements in a code per transaction. All these limits shared per transaction. I think I should switch off my camera because I'm facing some difficulty. It's little frequent. Is it back? Screen sharing?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about governor limits. So these are the limits we face very frequently when we write Apex code, or more frequently when we start our career in Salesforce as a beginner. A few other limits I can think of is heap size error, which we'll talk definitely later, because I have experienced multiple questions about heap size. How do you resolve the heap size error when you face it? So we'll talk later in the session. Then we talk, just skim through the exception handling. Actually, the main purpose of this training is not to get you guys familiar with the syntax of Apex. This I'm particularly looking at to deliver what I have achieved in my career with different hurdles, and how did I resolve it. What were my experiencing when I was developing an application for app exchange. So how particularly we seniors, or you can say architect, design a scalable solution. So I will try to give you the concepts as much as I can, rather than to bring you guys more familiarized towards the syntax. So what we can do for exception handling, like if our code gets in some exception means if there's any error we can see, or we run the code, when we run code and there will be any error like null pointer exception or anything. All these things come into exception handling. How you handle the exception, what we can do implement custom exception as well, but the most common we use in different programming languages as well as in Apex is try and catch. You can write your what you think this statement, particularly DML in or a business logic in a try block, and you just catch the exception. You can catch multiple exception as well. Like here in an example, we are catching DML exception because particularly we have only one DML statement in try, but we can use different. Or if we are making a web call out, HTTP call out, use we can catch without exception in the catch as well. The next thing in Apex is collections. I would say this is the backbone of Apex. If you know how to utilize which collection, your life would be easier. Once in my career, I was told that once you get the data, it's really difficult to get the data in a particular or in the appropriate collection of Apex. Once you get it, then you can do anything. You have to identify either we should use map or we should use list. And then once you get familiarized with it, you will use list of maps and map of list, multiple intersecting each other. So we have three main types of, or you can say three types of collection in Apex. The first one is a list. It is an ordered collection. Ordered means it holds indexing. If you are using list in Apex and you are filling a list and you ask for a particular index, provide a particular index like list of string index one, it will give you the particular index element present in that list. Other one is set. Set usually we use it to remove that duplicate. Set is a unique set of collection, and set is basically a collection where we want to. It is an unordered. Unordered. You cannot promise or you are not certain that when you use set, it will return the same element as the list because it is unordered. Particularly, the purpose of the utilization or the usage of set is to remove the duplicates. The third one is a map, and the most important one. Map is a key value pair collection where the first part of the map key part is a unique identifier and the other one is a value. So the first part of the map is called key set. It's actually set against a list. That's why we call it set. Move next topic to advanced socket. Advanced socket is when write a simple socket. You can write socket with different filters. You can write. I would say socket is itself a very uh, big concept, and I would like to emphasize here with very basic things. It's the only object query language we use in Salesforce. The other one is the Social, which is used for search. But the socket is like SQL or any other query language we have. But the main thing is socket have relation. It doesn't have joins. So that's a major thing we have to be focused on. Here we can see example. I don't know why it is written as and why did I put it under advanced socket because I don't see it as an advanced thing. Here you can see I just talked about the relationship. So here we are getting the ID name amount and account name of a particular invoice. There's a custom object invoice which have particularly a master detail to account, and we are getting the invoices for only Acme, where account name is Acme. I would say like advanced socket is much more than that. It's not just a basic relationship overview. We can use it in socket. Now we are jumping towards the main part for presentation. Uh, so when we talk about any operation, we have two things to see, like synchronous and asynchronous. There are two types of operations in any programming language or in any field. What is synchronous? Synchronous is actually a thing where we want a real-time interaction for our action, or where we are waiting for our action to get completed. Let's say, let me give an example. I click a button and of save, and I want it to be saved on the real time, or I want all the validations to run on the exact time when I'm saving the record. But asynchronous options are the one where we are not going to wait for our operation to complete. Instead, we ask system to do it when the resources are free. So in Salesforce we have 4 or 3 different types of asynchronous would say components to write asynchronous in Apex. The first and the very basic one is future method. Future method actually is uh, asynchronous option or asynchronous method which you can write in Apex, but it has some limitations. Like it has a future method cannot return anything. It does not return the job ID. Maybe an example. What actually asynchronous does, when we write synchronous with asynchronous, it splits the transaction. For example, the first scenario, the very common scenario of the future method I've done is you cannot, okay, let's not talk about this one. I want a particular, like there's an invoice record, and I want when I, and there's a status field on that invoice record. When I save, when I set the status to send, or so the email should have been sent to the customer with the invoice PDF. So this is a good example of because future method, because I want PDF to be generated with a Visual Force page. If I do it in the same transaction, it will give me the error. So what we do here, we do not let our process to stop or gets failed for any particular thing. So we ask Salesforce, let this invoice get saved and do this in a future method asynchronously. So all the things like generating the PDF and do any calculation will be handling separately with separate governor limits applied on it. Here's another example. Does it public static void update whether this location? Let me give you another real life example of, or even frequent example of future method. Okay, let's do it. We cannot make a web call out in scheduler class, but what if we want our HTTP call out to be scheduled on a particular time? Like there are multiple scenarios. I want uh, to bring all the invoices from QuickBooks Online at 12 a.m. GMT or anytime. So if I'm giving a particular schedule and I want it in a schedulable interface, but there's a limit of Salesforce we cannot do or we cannot perform the call out. in schedulable interface class or in scheduler class. So here we utilize the feature method. Our scheduler run on a particular time, and on it when it will see, oh, there's a future method. It splits the transaction, make the call out, bring all the data from QBO and do the action. The other one is Queueable Apex. Uh, there's a time back in 2015 uh, when Salesforce introduced Queueable. Initially, we only had the batch Apex, which one I'm gonna talk next, and they introduced the future. But like I said, there were very much limited capabilities of future, like passing only the primitive data types. We cannot pass particular parameters or the class interfaces in futures, anything. But with Apex, we Salesforce allow multiple things, and I would say this is the backbone of asynchronous Apex. Why it is more powerful than Queueable Apex? Queueable Apex is actually a qubit interface like different interfaces Salesforce has provided to us. Actually, previously, when we have only batches, when we want to change different asynchronous operation, we could not do it with batches. We have to wait for batch to finish and then go in the finish and then start again run. It takes a lot of time. But in Queueable, we can now, or we can not only change the job sequentially, means let execute this set of commands or actions, and after completing this performing these actions, again do something in an asynchronous way. So we can do it with Queueable Apex. The other thing it's more powerful than future is because it can take anything as the parameter, but the future methods has some limits. And the third one is it returns the job ID, but in future we cannot get any job ID. Here we can see the example like my Queueable class implements Queueable interface. Back. And in execute method, we can do anything. Anything in our business logic, we can make the call out, we can do the chain or anything. What we have, I mean what I have done with the Queueable is I or the chaining is I have utilized Queueable by to make a web HTTP call out, and after the call out completion of the call out instruction data, just update the customer data record. So I have to chain it back, or I can use different series of asynchronous Apex in Queueable. The third thing is really very important. Batch Apex. It is when we talk about bulk data, we talk about batches and so forth. What it does, it actually brings the data. And let's talk about the syntax. How does batch Apex work? The first, actually, the batch has three methods which you have to write. The first one is start, the second is execute, and the third is finish. The start is used to bring the data on which the execute will iterate. You have you can say millions of data in your database, and you perform an action or certain action on that data which you cannot do via trigger or anything. You have to do with batch. You bring all the data. Start is of two types. One is, you can say, the batch is of two types. One, you have to run it on the S object list, and the other one is custom iterator. You can make custom iterator like you want to run batch of uh, number of list elements, or you have the records of in a form of Apex class parts in an Apex class. You want to run batch on those number of records or the list of records, or you want to run batch on Salesforce S object records. So it's your choice. You bring the data on which the batch execute will work in the start, and in execute you will use the data you brought from start method, and you perform your action. The batch execute method runs multiple times. If you have, for example, you have 1,000 records in a batch and in the start, or you can query locator of the start in the list, which you pass to the execute, and the batch size is one. Your execute method will run for 1,000 times, and at the end we have the finish method. What finish method does, like on the at the end of, or you can say on the completion of certain operation, you want to send a notification like, hey, your uh, data has been processed, your email has been sent out, anything you can do in finish. Now the test, let me just do the asynchronous versus synchronous, and then we'll move towards the test classes, because I think the test classes is the last thing before deployment any code. Synchronous, sometimes called sync, and asynchronous, sometimes called async. Okay, right. There are two different models. Asynchronously runs when a resource frees up. Synchronous run at the exact time when you call it. There are some example key differences. Synchronous experience is immediate. Asynchronous is delayed because it runs in background. Limits risk in synchronous are higher because there are certain limits, governor limits, which are greater than the limits we have in uh, synchronous one. Like the heap size limit of synchronous transaction is 6 MB, but we get 12 MB when we work with asynchronous effects. Use cases, or you can say examples. Synchronous Apex includes simple triggers, validation, or like these are enough, I guess. And asynchronous Apex like long running jobs, queueable future methods, and batch Apex. Use cases where you decide where what we should do, synchronous or asynchronous. Like you want the speed validation during save, because you want anything to run in the same transaction, like the validation or the integrity of the data, or you want a particular record or to be updated after a particular transaction occurred, you would go for synchronous Apex. Where you want to send emails after long running operation, or there are bulk data set you have to perform any operation on, you will go for asynchronous. And there's an example you can see for Apex trigger, and an example of asynchronous Apex, which is a feature method. So asynchronous ideal for non-blocking tasks like IO operations, example API request. We usually prefer API request in asynchronous mode, and the other is best suited for operation that must occur in a strict sequence. Increase efficiency when multiple tasks can run in parallel, where you want to run parallel tasks and you don't want any sequence to be followed, or no one is waiting for that job to be completed. You would go for asynchronous apex, and but where you have to wait for a certain thing and you cannot run that particular job independent or the particular process independent, you will go for synchronous programming. Asynchronous programming improves application responsiveness because it doesn't hold up any resources. Your never gets slowed, or your CPU will not be busy in running, or you can say holding anything. It will run or do the asynchronous thing when it gets free from any synchronous job. How synchronous processing works code immediately as a part of the user's action, like you click a button and it will just do the thing immediately. It's ideal for quick real-time tasks like validation or instant updates, immediate execution. User wait for the result used in validation and triggers. Like you can see here, process A makes a request to process B and wait for. But in asynchronous apex, you can see process A is doing something to process B, and it is continuing its work. It's not stopping or waiting for the process B to get completed. That's major difference of synchronous and asynchronous. There's a, you can say, graphical representation used in validation and triggers. This is everything for synchronous apex. Changes made to records in org. The trigger fires. It does everything or the action we are going for save, and after making a transaction, committing the data in Salesforce, it runs for the after save. Everything, this whole process is synchronous, and if there is any error, everything will be rolled back. And you cannot do anything when this whole process is running. That's why it is synchronous and it's holding up the resources. Some asynchronous apex. Let me go for test classes. Why we test classes in Salesforce? Actually, when we write anything in Salesforce, any code in Salesforce, Apex in Salesforce, as I said earlier in the session, we in Salesforce we have to be very much concerned about multi-tenant architecture because the resources are being shared with multiple of servers. So we have to be very much concerned about limits, and we have to be very much concerned about what we are writing. So for that, we are using test classes. We have to perform a certain use cases, or would say testing or testing, like our code, like my code is working, or is it getting failed, or it's throwing error, and to get the coverage to reduce the, as you all know, we have shared resources, we have some limits. We also have limits to write the code in apex. It's actually pretty long, but I've seen some orgs in my experience where uh, too much code in too much apex classes in the org, and the apex code character limit was nearly to be hit. So that's why Salesforce made a practice to write test classes, get your code coverage, and remove any unnecessary code. Or and the other thing is if you have written a bogus code where your CPU or the processor got stuck, it shouldn't be go towards production. It should be tested in sandbox first by writing the test classes. Here you can see Salesforce unit tests are performed by developers to ensure that functionality is working as expected. Considering both positive and negative tests, we should do both the positive one and negative tests as well. We should not focus on the only to get the code coverage because it's easy to get. There are multiple code coverage. I should not. There are multiple ways. Uh, you can do dirty work. It is not recommended because what there shouldn't be any extra code in your Salesforce or anything extra. Leave extra either because every record counts and every Apex code counts the Apex limit of the all components, single records, positive scenarios, negative scenarios, and restricted users. You should write test classes for multiple user persona. Like if my code being run for not for only for system admin, if it being run for standard user, what should be the output or how will it behave? So that's the purpose of writing. So at the end, I've put down few questions I have been from my peers or my junior or even from myself when I was designing or working with different applications. Let me call and discuss one by one. Can we call a batch from batch? We cannot call a batch from a batch because we cannot call an asynchronous process with another asynchronous process. It gets old because it is not promised the completion time of asynchronous or the running time of the asynchronous is not promised by Salesforce. So there will be a hold indefinitely and you may get stuck. That's why we cannot call a batch from a batch. But we can call a batch from a queue, queueable. Can we call a batch from a queue and vice versa? No, you cannot call a queue from a batch, a queueable interface, or you cannot enqueue a job from batch execute, but you can call a batch from queueable. When we were discussing queueable, I said queueable was used to chain different jobs from the queue. There is a chaining limit, or you can in-queue a particular. You can in-queue only one
So,
queuable
Zenbai, I think your
job,
voice is breaking.
and
So, can
that's
you
a
hear
limit.
me?
Yeah, I can hear
Uh, yeah, Zenbai. So, I think your voice is breaking due to the video. You can switch it off and we can continue.
you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
It's better now.
it's good now. Yep.
Yes, there's a limit of chain the queuables. We can only call one. We can only in queue. Actually, call is not a good word for queuable. We can in queue only one queuable from a parent queue at a time. How many queue job can be included in system? There can be only one. If you do If you try to do another job, you'll get the error, no more than one job added to the queue. Is there any problem if to queue, how to handle heap size limit, for example, ERP send or external system send? Michelle, we can feel
Mm-hmm.
noise from your side.
Okay, let me
Are you
let me
saying something?
mute myself. I can mute myself.
Thank you. So, how to handle heap size limit, for example, ERP send a huge response which cross heap size limit. How we can? That's a pretty deep question. We can, like, if external returns,
That's some participant. Let me mute him.
thank you. Yeah, if the external system is more than 6 MB, I mean, we cannot do anything. We just apply the pagination or limit our response to come under 6 MB. But if we are getting anything nearly 6 MB, what we do, we split the transaction and we get the data in JSON or anything. Now we can see where we'll check the limit. What is our heap size? If and we keep some buffer, we're not going to take or check the 6 MB because our process fails when it gets near to 6 MB, and we apply some limit and split the transaction. This is how we handle heap size limit. Why call out not allowed in schedule class? Why? That's a good thing because schedule class is designed to run at a particular time, and the call out on the call out we are not sure, we are not certain like it will return or how much time it will take. So we cannot hold up the resources. That's why scheduled class is sorry, call out allowed in scheduled class. Why we can't call? We cannot call asynchronous except from the Queueable interface. And how many ways we authenticate to Salesforce JWT flow, but it also comes under name credential or 2.0. How do we know these two or more piece of code runs in different transactions? That's an easy one. I see debug log. If there are two transactions occur, I know the, the code is running in different transactions. That's the easiest way I can think of. So I think that's the question I have been asked multiple times from my juniors, and I think it could have helped you as well. If you guys have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask.
Thank you so much, Zenbei, for an amazing session. No doubt. There is a chat, and we can review questions in the chat. There is one from Yusuf.
Oh, there are 14 chat. Thank you, Hamza Bhai, Hamza Siddiqui, MVP. Wonderful session there, Nepal. Make sure you give one of the best.
Yeah, and there are replies to his chat as well.
What did I ask? Okay, let me get a little bit. The responses I get from first every answer, then I do it. So we're gonna do this in batch. Wow. Thanks, Nick, for answering on my behalf, man. Let's have I have service once the API insert the return response. 1,000 records from API response. and 1,000 records. So how I handled it, it's like I got the amounts or record in a single time, and to parse it, I utilize another resource, or you can say batch. Split the transaction to avoid the heap size error. And if I see there's still I may face heap size error, I split and another transaction after the parsing of the record to insert it in Salesforce. I think that answers Yusuf's question. Snake did right. I mean, he wrote right. Do this in batch. Thank you, Yusuf, for the response. Anything else, guys? If you wanna ask, please ask. Otherwise, we can end the session.
So I don't think Zenbai there are any more questions in the chat. So I think we can wrap this up. And this was an amazing session explanation because being a developer, I can understand the concepts and the questions, especially you talked about, are really important. So, and thank you everyone for the attendees and participants for joining us today over the weekend. So, I will be sharing the recording once this is uploaded on YouTube, and this will also be wrapped up on the community. So, once this is uploaded, I'll share on the Salesforce community WhatsApp. And also, we do have another event next week. I will share the details for that as well. So I think we are good to go until unless Zanbai has something to say.
No, no, I just want to thank you to provide me. Uh, I mean, to make the slides
Thank
for me.
you. Yeah,
Honestly,
for welcoming.
and I was too lazy to prepare presentations and to bring me here for the session. Thank you so much.
Uh, Thank you so much. Thank you so much for like a senior folks like you. Whenever you guys come, like Anas Sagar also came in for last on-site event, and that was an amazing session. Literally in at Folio 3, this was an on-site session, and that's good. So I really appreciate it. Like you guys are coming, sharing your experiences. This is what truly community is for. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, bye. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Thank
Have
you.
a nice day.
Yeah. Bye everyone. Thank you guys.